Well, hello there and welcome to another Bass Brothers Hardstyle tutorial. And today we are looking at a screaming, well, it sort of sounds like screaming more into a raw, euphoric hardstyle lead, which we made. This is a tutorial how you can make this, and also you can download this one for free from our web shop for 2 weeks, and then it's going to be €2 after that. And of course the link will be down in the description. Let's hear the end result first, and let's dive into the project after that. Let's go. Alright, so that was the end result. Now let's look at every single layer and what we did, why we did it, so you can learn how you can make this shit on your own also. And if you want to get the whole project or just the presets, they're both included into the package. You can download it from our webshop, link down in the description, go check it out. And it's free for 2 weeks. Let's check what is the last day. 13th of December. No, sorry, 14th of December is the last day. It's going to be free, so go quickly get it while it's free. Yeah. Alright, so this whole lead project was made with Silent One and FL Studio's stock plugins, plus actually the OTT from Xfer, but that's a free plugin, so if you don't have it, go download it already. Now, let's mute the chords, reverb and delay, and the bassline, and now we can check out the lead itself. And like I said, it's all made in Silent One. We have 4 different layers in the lead, and the lead on its own sounds like this. And by the way, some of you guys might wonder what is this melody. It's from our track called Drive, and if you're using this project, just change the melody and you'll be good to go. Alright, so let's start with the lead layer number 1. This is basically just to create the overall sound and the main sound for this lead. And we have used both A and B part, so 4 oscillators, and they are all in mono setting. I don't know why this is on D2. Yeah, let's go with this. So first of all, we have a saw layer here on the first oscillator, and there's nothing special about that. One voice, retrigger, put on, and on the A2 we have a, what is this called? It's an half pulse wave, and it's pitched 1 octave higher, and also the phase is slightly adjusted and the retrigger is on. This is just to shape the sound with these 2 oscillators, and if you're changing the phase, it changes basically the whole sound. You could also do it here in the oscillator A1. It really doesn't matter, you can get the same result if you are changing the phase here and not here. And on the B part, we have basically the same thing on B1 as A1. So another saw wave, and here we have one octave higher. We have another saw wave with slight adjustment to the phase as well. Basically, what this is, so we wanted the saw sound to be the most prominent one, and since you have somewhat limited options, you could also do the same thing with just 3 oscillators. Leave this one empty and just lower the volumes of the other oscillators. Basically, the reason why there's 2 same things on A and B part is to double in volume, if you get what I mean. You can also, you know, just lower the volume on the other ones so you don't have to double it, so you could just make this more efficient. Yeah, those are the oscillator parts. Then we have a filter, both in A and B part. They are slightly different, not much, but a little bit. And then we have a pitch modulation here with the envelope, and it makes the sort of sound in the beginning. It's quite short, but it's you need it to make it sound like this. And then on the LFOs, we have a random waveform, highest possible rate, a little bit of gain, some the destination is assigned to pitch on the both A and B part, and it's slightly turned down. It doesn't matter if you're turning it up or down. So basically it's just moving the pitch on both of those parts, all the 4 oscillators, so it changes the pitch very rapidly, randomly, and it makes a buzzing sound. And then we have another pitch LFO. This time it's only on the A part, and it's a little bit slower on the rate. Let me check it out. What is it? It's 132 in the triplet, because the melody is on triplet. And if you want to change the melody for this project into I don't know what's the correct term, but you know, 1/4 rhythm, then you need to change every single one of these LFOs to match your rhythm of the lead. So if you're not using a triplet lead, change the rates on every single one of them, and you can get more perfect result. And then we have slight distortion with the clip distortion, and some EQ here to shape the sound a little bit. You could also EQ it on the mixer track, and we also have EQ'd on the mixer track as well. And then we have a monolegato here because we have sliding notes, and we want them to, you know, pitch accordingly. Let me show you. For example, here we have a long note, and there's an overlapping note on one of the lower, so it pitches down into this note, and that's why the monolegato is turned on, and the portamento has been changed here to shape the speed which it travels to the destination note, so to speak. Yeah, that's the lead layer number 1. Then we have the layer number 2, which sounds like this. And here we have sort of a screechy sound, and this is only done in A part. And here we have opened up the attack a lot compared to the first lead layer, because we didn't want this was designed so that when you hit a fast note, you can't hear this layer, but when you have a little bit longer note, this layer comes with the lead. And this is heavily detuned, basically a saw lead. I would call this a super saw. The other oscillator is 1 octave higher and a lot lower in volume. And again, we have a filter with high resonance, and this is to create, along with the distortion, to make the screechy sound. And same kind of pitch envelope for the start of the note. And in this one, it's even, more subtle than in the first layer, because we have opened up the attack here in the amplitude envelope. And then I guess the more interesting part. Again, we have the same type of LFO like we had on the lead layer number 1. It was on LFO 2. Here we have almost the same thing on LFO 1. Just to make sound more unified, we have the same kind of vibes and same kind of LFOs throughout the whole, all these presets, to make it more sound more unified. And then, I guess the interesting part, we have a slower rate sine wave LFO, which has been assigned to resonance A, which is this one. And it moves the resonance according to the rate assigned here. So it changing, basically what it looks like, I can show it with an EQ. It looks like something like this, because you have resonance, you have a peak in the filter, like so, and this is a cutoff. So first of all, it should be more like, just a second, not that one here. It should look like something like this, the filter. And I'm only moving this one parameter now, but it should move everything here from the sides. But the LFO is doing this kind of movement there. And it's changing the resonant frequency of the lead layer. And you can hear it, it's quite subtle, but it's there. And quite slow. And that makes a little bit of the screaming element and more, it makes it more, I don't know, vocal, but it makes it a little bit more movement into the lead. And again, on their own, they sound quite dirty, quite harsh, but they are processed in the end to make sound more pleasant. Now, the lead layer number 3. We have only one oscillator, and it's quite detuned, so wave, and it's only 4 voices this time. And we have basically the same type of thing as in the layer 2, except this time the layer is, this is more clean sounding. It's still not clean, but it's more clean, It's the same principle, everything is basically same, except it's slightly different rate with the resonance LFO in the filter. And of course the resonant is not that, you could change this to more, if I'm turning this resonance up, you can hear the movement a lot clearer. And that's the whole point of this LFO. This was much clearer, actually. I should have started with this one. Again, distortion with the resonant filter makes the screechy sound to the lead. a little bit of EQ just to tame up the, because when you're using a filter and a distortion, it makes quite harsh frequencies, so this tames them just a little bit. Okay, and now the fourth layer. This is basically a supersaw again, with heavy detune, 8 voices, and then we also have a mono layer here. And then we have, again, the filter and the distortion, except this time the distortion is quite heavy, and also the resonance is quite heavy. And we don't have any LFO for the resonance. We only have pitch LFOs, and these are just slightly different to make certain kind of vibrations and how to say? Well, it makes the sound again more dirty, but more control the way we want them. And this has a little bit of chorus, just slightly, and a little bit of EQing. And again, on the all the layers, we have the portamento, monolegato setting, almost the same. They can slightly vary. It doesn't matter. It makes the sound feel more alive when they are not basically the same type of pitching. So one might be slightly faster than the other one, so it makes it more. It makes a little bit more character to the whole sound. And those are basically the layers and how you can make them. Of course, now you can use this information, make a distorted, maybe a saw wave, and add a bandpass filter with the correct settings if you're using only oscillator A or B or both, and play around with the cutoff and the resonance until you get the screechy sound. And with the LFO assigned to the resonance, you can make the resonant peak move the way you want. Of course, if you are doing this same type of sound designing, for example in Serum, you have a lot more options than in Silent 1. But yeah, there's that, and the processing itself is quite simple. If you'll watch the last tutorial, this project has the same type of processing all around. So every single layer has multiband compression first, which adds also saturation, and it's quite high in the depth section. For example, this is in 74. Let's see the other ones. This is 77 and 74. Basically, it's how you can make quickly the same type of compression when you open up OTT, lower up the depth, and then usually we play around with the high and mid bands, maybe add a little bit on the high band and lower a little bit on the mid, and you need to just hear and adjust the way you want them to sound. But that's basically how we usually use OTT on leads and chords. And then there's some EQing just to make everything fit perfectly with each other. So there's some cutting out the harsher frequencies and maybe boosting something that is actually needed. And with the distortion and the resonant, you can see there's a clear pattern that there are some harsh frequencies here around 4K and around 910K, depending on the lead, and those has been tamed a little bit. And of course, like always, all the layers are routed into a lead bus, where we first have a EQ to balance things out before we are doing. Of course, if you're a professional, which we are not, by the way, you can shape your sound in the layers themselves, so you don't need the first EQ here. You can always be a little bit more efficient if you want. And again, we have multiband compression. And this time a little bit less with the depth, but same type of things that I just explained. Lower the depth, maybe add a little bit highs or mids, whatever it's needed. Then, because this is more like a raw style lead, we added some distortion, and basically with the wave shaper we added one more point and then made it so it's basically a clip distortion. And again, some EQing to shape the sound, and when we added distortion, of course there's gonna be some harsh frequencies, so we lowered them just a little bit. And this is also routed into a reverb, delay, and to a lead final bus. But we can look at the processing on those a little bit later. Let's first look at the chords. Now, the chords sound like this. And they are quite heavily detuned chords, and it's 3 layers. And let's look at layer number 1, and it sounds like this. And again, we have same thing with the pitch LFOs as in the lead, so it makes more unified sound. But we are not using any resonance or distortion or LFO with the resonance, because that's the lead's character, and we wanted to make these chords a little bit dirty, a little bit detuned, but also a little bit more softer and, you know, clearer with the sound, so it balances out the harshness of the lead. And for example, this first layer, it's on the A part, it's just a super saw. Actually, the pitch has been adjusted in the A1, 1 octave higher, and on the A2, 2 octave higher. And on the B part, we only have 2 voice saw lead layer and 1 voice. And this one is pitched 1 octave lower, because you want more bottom end to your chords. The lead doesn't have so much, you know, low mids, so we are using the chords to make the low mids in the overall sound. The pitch envelope is basically the same as in the lead, so that's important to make it unified. And then we have the pitch LFO, which also makes it more unified. And of course, no portamento, because if you are using portamento on the chords, it sounds stupid. Let me demonstrate. So it just pitches all the notes all over the place, because you have 3 notes playing at the same time, so it tries to pitch into one. It tries to go from one note to the other, so it plays only one note, and it doesn't work with the chords. Yeah, that was the first layer. The second one is like this. And this is more like a warmer, detuned super saw. And here we have, on the A part, we have -1 on the pitch to make it a little bit lower. And 8 voices, both are panned actually a little bit differently. the first one is a little bit to the left and the other one is a little bit to the right to make it sound more wider. This is the wide chord layer. And again, quite heavily detuned. These are also a little bit fine-tuned, fine-pitched, fine-tuned differently, so it doesn't sound like it's in key. It detunes the chord sound even more. And on the B part, we have two different, basically quite the same saw layers with even heavier detuned and a little bit touched on the fine tune, just so they, because these are basically the same thing. When you are adjusting the pitch, fine pitch slightly, it makes them different. Yeah. Then we have EQ and compression, just a little bit. Again, the same pitch envelope, and we have a little bit different pitch LFOs. And the first one is quite slow with the saw wave, and it just makes the sound, it feels more analog, even though it's not. But a slow sine wave pitch LFO does that. It creates an analog feeling that it's not always staying in tune, you know. And then a random waveform, high rate pitch LFO. And the last layer sounds like that. And again, we have a detuned super saw, and on the B part we have a detuned super saw with 1 octave higher, and we have a detuned square with 8 voices and a little bit less on the volume. And these have both been actually filtered a little bit and used with a low pass just to get rid of some highs. And then we have an EQ, and we also have the envelope for the cutoff. And it just tames the higher end a little bit. Actually, does this even... This doesn't even do anything now. Oh yeah, we have the... That's why, because we have the key tracker on. So now when it uses the filter, it has the key tracker on, so it tracks on which note you're playing, and it adjusts the cutoff according to that note you're playing. So it varies, the filter settings vary on each different note, so it stays more consistent. And again, we have the pitch LFOs, and slightly different, but still the same type of thing that we have on the other ones. And now we have a little bit of monolegato here, just to make it sound more pitchy on the beginning of the note. There we go. The processing, I don't think I need to get more in depth to this. There's basically the same type of thing as we used on the leads. First the OTT, the same principles, correcting EQ after that, and then we are routing them into a bus, and we have almost the same type of processing. First an EQ to correct, then OTT, and then we distort the sound, and then we correct after that to tame the harsh frequencies. Now we have leads and the chords, and we can look at the final send and how we process them there. Then we can look at the reverb and the delay, and lastly the bassline. So in the final send we have a little bit more distortion, because why the hell not? There's always room for more distortion. And a subtle OTT with multiband compression. This time it's only 24% in the depth setting. Again, correcting EQ to tame frequencies that you don't like. And then we have a Maximus to basically master the final sound of the leads and chords altogether. So basically this works as a bus compression. And if I remember correctly, we used a preset. It was one of these. And I think they're tweaked just slightly on different bands like post or pre-gain, but nothing much else. So basically if you're using any of these, what sounds the best, just try these different mastering presets. These work quite well on leads actually. And then again we have some correcting EQ, and then we have a compression after that. And there we go. This is just a slight compression to make it more squashed. We like our lead sounds more, squashed, less dynamic, because in the mixing and mastering it's easier to control the sounds, especially kick, the leads and the chords, and well, maybe vocals as well. But the main elements of the track, we would like to squash them and keep the peaks to the minimum, because it's much easier to mix and master very loudly like hardstyle should be. Then the reverb and delay. I used basically almost the same settings in this project as in the last one, so there's nothing weird about this. Just make a reverb to your liking, and when you're using a reverb send, you only need the wet sound. You don't need any of the dry sound. And you can adjust the settings however you like. EQ the sound after that to make fit how you like it. And then we have a sidechain compression on the reverb and delay. And if you guys like to have a tutorial about sidechain compression, please let us know. Leave a comment down, and should be quite easy to do. We can show a few different ways to do sidechain compression, at least on FL Studio. Then the delay, same thing. Use the delay you like and play with the settings how you like it. Just again, if you're using it as a send, remember only wet sound and zero dry sound. You could also use delay and reverb on the final send. It's all up to you, but this way you have more control of the sounds. But I don't think that there's anything wrong using the delay and the reverb on the final send. Or you can use like a reverb on each of the layers. It really doesn't matter how you make your sounds. Just do what feels the best for you, and there's always someone who says there's better ways of doing things and the worst way of doing things, but just do it your way. And this is our way, and we like to do it this way. Yeah, and with the reverb and delay, the whole sound without the bass line sounds like this. There we go. And now let's look at the bass lines, which sound like this. And this is 4 different layers. And let's look at the first one, which sounds like this. So this is basically a character for the bass line. And this is a square wave. And there's a sine wave. And on the B part, we have a saw wave. Those oscillators which has more than one voice, like here the square and here the saw, it's a little bit detuned and a little bit differently on the amplitude envelope. Then we have some distortion, a little bit of phaser to make it move the sound, and some compression. And then we have a filter on the A part, which is a high pass. And we have the same type of pitch envelope here as we have in the leads and the chords. And same type of pitch LFO. And then we actually have a little LFO for the phaser frequency. And it basically moves the center frequency. It makes the phaser move a little bit differently. So this is basically an LFO for the phaser. And you can hear the difference with and without. So now we have the LFO on. It's quite subtle, but it's there. We know it's there, so that's enough. And a little bit of portamento for sliding bassline notes. There you go. That's the first layer. The second one. And this is also making a little bit more character and same type of sound design, except this time it's a quarter pulse wave and a little bit different on the B side. We have saw waves here with only one voice. A little bit of overdrive on the distortion, some chorus to make it wide because this is not the sub bassline. It can be wide, you can do whatever you want. Usually you could want to make the sub frequencies mono, but you can also do them in stereo. There's nothing wrong with that. The sound quality may be a little bit worse on bigger sound systems, but if you're making music to be listened on Spotify, it doesn't really matter if your bassline is fully mono on the sub frequencies or not. Yeah. Then again, pitch envelope, same as in the leads, and same type of pitch LFOs. Really simple. When you are making the first layer, just copy the one things that you think is necessary for the whole sound. Just copy them over to all the other presets. Then layer number 3. And this is a mono layer. And here we have the sub. And it's a saw wave and a sine wave. And the sine wave's phase has been a little bit changed. So to make it sound how we want it to sound. A little bit of pitch envelope and pitch LFO. And of course we have a little low pass cutoff, because on this layer we don't need any of the highs. And the B part is empty. So this is quite simple. And the fourth layer. And the purpose of this layer is to make the bassline sound a little bit more brighter, to bring out some high frequencies to the whole bass line. And it's just a detuned saw wave. And this time it has been high passed. So in this layer we don't need any of the lows. So those are cut already here in the silent one. Good old same pitch envelope and a monolegato for the sliding notes. And there we go. On the bass lines, there's only in the layers there's some EQing. Like in the first one, there's already the sub layer cut off. On the second one, same thing. Also cut a little bit of the highs and tame some frequencies. On the sub layer, we boosted a little bit on the 200 Hz to make it sound better in sound system that doesn't have, for example, a subwoofer. And then on the fourth layer, we have boosted a little bit of the highs because we wanted the high frequencies be more prominent in this layer. And they have been routed into a bassline bus where we have a multiband compression. Same thing with the leads. As with the leads, just lower the depth a little bit. And I guess on this one we added a little bit on the low frequencies, because the most important part of the bassline is the low frequencies. Then again, to be on the same page as the leads, we add distortion. And after the distortion, we correct a little bit with an EQ. And then we have a Maximus to master the bassline bus. So this is basically a bus compression. And again, I think it's one of these presets here, I guess. Can't remember fully. But there it is. That's the whole screaming hardstyle lead sound. And now you can try to make your own, or if you want, you can get it from our website. And if you are fast enough, the first 2 weeks, this is free, and then it's €2. And if you're working with a different DAW than FL Studio and you want to buy this project, there's also a folder where there's the presets for the silent one, so you can get these presets if you want. There you go. Now, if you stayed until the end and you watched this video, please hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, let's keep on making music. Let's hear the lead one more time, and now it's your turn to try to do something like this. Peace out.